How do you choose your favorite quilt? Is it because of the careful selection of beautiful fabrics, or is it just the special person or occasion that you made the quilt for? I have several favorites. It's so hard to choose just one. So I'm going to share my top 5 favorite quilts with you today. Let's take a look. Hi, I'm Andy, and this is True Blue Quilts, a place to enjoy, experiment, and excel as you quilt. This is my Quilt Directions, and it's on my list of favorites because it was such a fun collaboration with my mom. My mom and I have designed many quilts together. We have co-authored 2 books, and this is our latest endeavor. She had the inspiration for kind of the overall look, the feathers and the arrow blocks, and kind of the graphic elements, and also the color scheme. She gets a lot of inspiration from just seeing all the wonderful quilts that are shared on social media. And we took some of those elements and I played around for a while in EQ design software. We bounced ideas back and forth. We went shopping for the fabric together, and this is the result. It was so much fun putting together this quilt with the 2-tone background, the light center portion with some dark spots, and then the border elements. And she did all the piecing on this particular sample and then handed it over to me for some free motion quilting. And boy, did I have fun with that part as well. I went a little crazy with this tiny angular meander fill there, and then I did this shadow quilting. I call it shadow quilting when I take the main element of the block and then repeat it in the negative space. So I did that with these arrowhead blocks for the center. I also did that for the arrows and some of the chevrons in the borders as well. I just marked the quilt and did some ruler work there to get the same feel in the negative space that you have in the actual pieced elements of that quilt. So this is one of my all-time favorite quilts, Directions. This quilt is Teal Universe, and it is one of my all-time favorites because we chose this quilt as the cover of the first book I published with my mom as the co-author. It is part of the monochromatic series, and this is one of the few quilts that I've made multiple times because I have so many ideas for different color schemes. But I remember exactly where I was when I designed this quilt, laying it all out on graph paper and pixelating it with the little squares and figuring out all the calculations for what size strips we should use. And it was just so much fun to see my vision come to life. So this will always be one of my favorites. This is another of my top 5 favorite quilts. This one is called Lasagna, and you can see why with those layers there in this quilt. It was my very first completed quilt when my mom opened her fabric store and I bought my own machine and started this whole quilting journey. So it definitely has a sentimental place in my heart. And I followed a beginner pattern to put these strips together. It was a few years before the jelly roll craze hit and people started making that kind of strip quilt. But it's actually a double-sided quilt. So I initially found this animal print that I've used on the back, and then I had so much fun finding all these fun coordinating prints that went along with the animal print in the border. And just, you know, some wild combinations when you look up close, but it was so fun to put together. And I didn't have this first border on, and I really didn't like the look. And then you know, first meeting with Jack the Ripper there, as I had to rip everything out so that I could put this spacer border on. And now that's one of my favorite techniques, is to just use one of the colors there to give your eye a rest, and then add this other pieced border on to bring it up to a nice lap small twin size. One of my long arm quilting mentors did the quilting on this, and it is so spectacular. Just some nice wavy lines here. She really played off that idea of lasagna and those wavy noodles. But then she did some fabulous custom quilting in the borders and drew little animals in there. It's just fabulous, and it's always going to have a special place in my heart as being my first quilt. Here is Big and Bright. I will treasure this quilt for being the first design that I published in a magazine. And this is such a fun design to put together. I've actually made it several other times just because I want to play with different colors of stars, and I wanted to make a smaller version too, and that turned out really well. So Big and Bright, have fun with the stars, have fun playing in the negative space, and this has a treasured place in my heart. On my list of favorite quilts is this one that actually started me on the quilting journey. My mother made this quilt for me in 1977, and ever since then, it has been on my list of things to grab in case of a fire. Family heirloom. I mean, I treasure this quilt. It went to college with me, and it's so glorious in all its 70s harvest gold splendor. I mean, look at these colors. But it is such a labor of love. All of this hand applique, all these little details of the different color stitching. There's other flowers and butterflies quilted in addition to the applique. And I love having a family heirloom and the hobby of quilting that I can share with my mother. So thanks, Mom. I love you.